Hey YouTube, so today we are making an actual true Amish recipe that I found online. If you want to screenshot it, you're welcome to do that. And also I will show you the link that you can use if you wanted to purchase the recipe book that they have that includes this recipe in it. But this recipe was included on their website. And here it is. It's at amishshop.com website, and the recipe is called spaghetti soup. It calls for 3 pounds of spaghetti, 1.5 pounds pinto beans, 1 quart of corn, 4 onions chopped, 5 pounds of ground beef, 1 quart of carrots diced, 2 bunches of celery diced, 2 teaspoons of pepper, 2 cups brown sugar, 6 tablespoons of salt, 8 quarts of tomato juice, 1¼ cups beef base. And the instructions are described as: cook each vegetable separately, brown ground beef and onions together, mix together, put in jars, cold pack 2 hours or pressure at 10 pounds for 45 minutes. The Amish mean when they say cold pack, it's water bath can. So this recipe will be water bath can for 2 hours, or you can use a pressure canner at 10 pounds for 45 minutes. I'll be using 7 cans of tomato paste along with 4 cups of water for every one of those cans. That'll make tomato paste into tomato juice. I'll be also using 1 quart of carrots. I'm using 6 pounds of ground beef where it's calling for 5. That's just to make up for the fact I'm not using quite as many of the vegetables that they ask for in the recipe. I'm using all these little onions here. It should equal out to 4 regular size onions. These ones are small, they're from my garden, and I'm just going to use them all up, and I think it should be equal. I'm also using 2 small zucchinis, which are not called for in the recipe, and 3 pounds of spaghetti. That is called for in the recipe. It calls for 2 cups of sugar. I will be using 1, and the sugar they're calling for is brown sugar, which I don't have. And so the quick hack for making brown sugar is simply to just add a tablespoon of blackstrap molasses into the sugar or along with the sugar, and that's going to be the equivalent of brown sugar. So I will be using half the amount of sugar in this recipe. And it calls for a lot more salt, but I'll be using 4 tablespoons of salt and a teaspoon of pepper. This ingredient right here caused a little bit of research for me. It's called, the recipe calls for 1¼ cup of beef base. Now beef base is basically bits of beef and concentrated stock. It's very thick, it's more gelatinous, and it's been cooked for longer than something like broth has. So the base is thicker than a broth, and if you want to purchase it at the store, you can. But if you want to make it, like if you're somebody who already makes bone broth, you're just going to boil your bone broth longer so that it becomes thick. And you can know that it's thick when it becomes gelatinous and it's like one big mass. So 1¼ cup of beef base. And so I'm going to go ahead and cook up this ground beef. It's requested that the ground beef and the onions are cooked together, so I'm going to go ahead and cook that up first. I personally would just cook everything together. For what I'm using, I will be cooking the carrots fully and the zucchini as well. And I'm just going to actually blend it up in the blender because not everybody in my family loves carrots and zucchini, but I will be putting it in our soup anyways. It won't be distinguishable by the time it's been cooked and blended. So all to say, I'm going to actually put all my vegetables together because I only have those 2. So I've got my onions chopped up, and I'm going to add it to about a tablespoon of butter here, like that. So I've added the ground beef to the onions, and I'm just going to go ahead and brown this up, and I'll come back when it's all crumbly and browned. While the ground beef is cooking, I've got these vegetables that were kind of boiling in some water here. For cook time, there are no cook times stated for these vegetables on the recipe. I've just gone ahead and cooked it to the point where it's soft enough that I can blend it, and that would be up to you how long you want to cook your vegetables for. I would say probably about 15 minutes or so, but that would be up to you. Use your own judgment, I guess. My ground beef is all cooked up and crumbly, and it's ready to go. My pasta is just about ready to go. I'm going to let it cook for probably another minute or two. And while that is cooking, I'm going to blend up the cooked vegetables. I will go ahead and add my spices that I had mentioned before. I've got the ones I had mentioned before, which is the salt and the pepper. And I'm going to also add, I was thinking about it, spaghetti soup. Spaghetti without garlic? No way. So I'm adding about a tablespoon of garlic powder and 2 teaspoons of what's called herbe de Provence, and that's basically herbs that are a mixture. It's kind of like Italian seasoning. I looked it up because the ingredients aren't on the bag I had it in anymore. And it's thyme, basil, rosemary, tarragon, savory, marjoram, oregano, and bay leaf. So I'm going to go ahead and mix that all in, and then I will come back after I've ground up the vegetables. Then I'll come back and add all my tomato juice. Now I'm realizing here this is my biggest pot. It's very big, but as you can see, it doesn't have much before it becomes too full. And looking over here at the spaghetti, it's a huge pot of it. There's no way that this is all going to fit in here, and so I'm gonna have to get out big guns, which is my water bath canner or my pressure canner pot. I'm just gonna have to mix up all my ingredients in the pressure canner pot and then dish it all out into my jars and then wash out the water bath canner pot so that I can actually water bath can them in the pot, if that all made sense to you. I'm just gonna dump in my carrot and zucchini that's cooked already into the Vitamix. And if you want to try this with any mixed vegetables that you might not want to taste in your soup, but you want to get the veggies in there, or for finicky eaters, you can do the same thing. If you have tomato juice, you can just add the tomato juice into the vegetables. And myself, I'm just going to add water that would be part of the 28 cups that I'm going to be using in order to make the tomato juice. I read in a magazine long ago that the best fed mouth in a house is the drain, because a lot of times we'll dump out water from our cooked vegetables and whatnot and throw it down the drain rather than keep it. So I've started to try my best to keep water from cooking, and this is potato water, so I'm gonna put the potato water in there as part of my 28 cups, I believe it is. But of course, if you're okay with chunky vegetables in your soup, then you can skip this step. I'm gonna blend this up and add it to my ground beef. Okay, so I got my giant canner and I've got the ground beef in there. I'm gonna add the spaghetti. There's the water and the beef base, the sugar, molasses, and all 7 cans of tomato paste. I'm gonna go ahead and mix this up. And okay guys, you can see something I did not foresee is this spaghetti is like, there's so much of it. When you start to serve it up into the jars, it's gonna be impossible to serve this up equally or even remotely equally because of the noodles being so long, right? It's spaghetti. So what I'm gonna do, and what I would probably suggest, is to go with a knife and just kind of go in there and slice up the spaghetti so that it's more manageable when you spoon it into your jars. Okay guys, so I'm on the last jar. I'm going to show you how I jarred it. I could tell you this recipe is really messy. You can see the spaghetti all over the place. I'm about to put all these jars in the water bath canner, but I just wanted to show what it looks like, this recipe. It's made a lot. Like, it's made 10 quart jars plus these 2 huge bowls right here. I'm gonna just guesstimate that this recipe, if you followed it in its entirety, it would give you about 16 quart jars of spaghetti soup. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these in the water bath canner, and when it comes to a rolling boil, I'm going to start my timer at 2 hours. It fits 7 quart jars in my water bath canner, and I will just do my other 7 tomorrow. There's the rolling boil, and it's gonna go for 2 hours. I'll come back whenever. Okay, so here it is the next morning. The jars are completely cooled down here in this picture, and they may look a little bit foggy to you, and that's because I forgot to add vinegar to the water bath canning water. So just a reminder to add some vinegar to your pot just to help avoid having cloudy looking jars. They can easily be washed down after, but it can skip the step. If you have vinegar in your water, it usually helps keep the jars clear. So that's everything. Thank you for watching, and God bless you. See you in the next video.